ίσως. Μεγάλα χαιρετίσματα από εμάς και σιγά σιγά θα έρθουν και άλλοι συνεργάτες, συντρόφοι, φίλοι στο συνέδριο νεοελληνικών σπουδών που είναι στην τρίτη μέρα τώρα. Σήμερα έχω την τιμή να είμαι ο chair, πρόεδρος. Πρόεδρος, οκ. Αισθάνομαι πολύ σημαντικός και famous. Και σήμερα έχουμε μια ιδιαίτερη χαρά να έχουμε μια άμεση σύνδεση μεταξύ της Αθήνας και της Ατλάντας, να δώσετε και εσείς την ευκαιρία να είστε μαζί. Αυτό το session λέγεται Grassroots Oral History Groups in Times of Crisis. Και είναι μια ειδική ευκαιρία για τέσσερις συλλόγους της προφορικής ιστορίας να μας δώσουν μια εικόνα τι γίνεται σε αυτήν την εποχή της κρίσης. Θα απουσιάσω από την οθόνη για να μπορέσετε εσείς να δείτε όλους τους φίλους εδώ και ελπίζω ότι θα έχουμε μια ανταλλαγή απόψεων. Αρχικά όμως, ίσως το καλύτερο είναι εσείς να μας πείτε με τα δικά σας λόγια τι τρέχει, τι γίνεται σε τέτοια εποχή της κρίσης. Σας ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ και δίνω το βήμα στην Τασούλα Βραβινιώτη. Ευχαριστώ σας.
Ευχαριστώ. I would like to thank the program committee of the Modern Greek Studies Association Symbosium who accepted our proposal for this special session, and personally Van Stilgoda who inspired me to write the proposal. In this panel, 4 grassroots oral history groups will participate, all of them established and functioning in Athens. Such groups also exist in other Greek cities, but in Athens the crisis is deeper than in the Greek countryside. I will argue that the creation of the groups is correlated to the crisis. For the last 5 years, Greek society has been going through a labyrinth crisis that has touched and changed dramatically all aspects of people's life, as well as the reference frame they lived by, their city and neighborhood. Greece is in a transition. Something old is disappearing and something new is going to be born. The acceleration of history, a common phenomenon in period of crisis, and the transformation of people's everyday life has also transformed their identities. Thus, the social body tries to form a new identity and therefore needs a new narrative about its past, one that is not so glorious and heroic, in order to be able to visualize and claim a better future. This process makes more visible the value of individual life narratives as a privileged tool for the analysis of rapid social changes that reconstruct the foundations of society. Oral history records the voices of ordinary people who resist and fight, while they feel fear and pain, which contrast with the stereotype of a heroic and simultaneously a self-satisfied lifestyle of the previous period. Thus, the mass response of volunteers in forming oral history groups, as well as the use of oral testimonies by artists and directors in theatre and cinema, is correlated with the historical conjuncture of the crisis. All these initiatives serve the same purpose: to provide Greeks with an alternative narrative of their past. The people involved in oral history project, consciously or not, are critical voices on what happens in Greece now. Their critique is not only against the Greek government and the way it copes with the crisis, but it has to do with our global world, the European Union, the IMF, the States, China, etc. Moreover, oral history is poised to fulfill the vacuum between the oral society and the digitalized era. Oral history suits the decentralized informational times. Not only experts in the field or academics, but also volunteers after training in oral history's methodology are fully able to collect oral testimonies. The high educational level and the digital technological revolution has made it easier to record, disseminate, and archive memories. These are the changes that make the project of grassroots oral history groups feasible. In addition, oral testimonies have a particular weight in a society in which painful memories are hidden from history, such as the Greek Civil War trauma. People suffering because of the crisis has incited demands for a truth that is more truthful than history, the truth of personal experience and individual memory. And last but not least, there is a remarkable analogy with the acceleration and the democratization of history. That's why, in this time of crisis, oral history has become a people's project. The creation of oral history groups could be considered part of a broader spectrum of initiatives undertaken by ordinary people outside the old institutional and political framework. These initiatives cover a wide spectrum of domains from culture to economy. For example, the movement without middlemen, το κίνημα χωρίς μεσάζοντες, farmers and other kinds of producers sell their products, cheese, honey, rice, olive oil, potatoes, etc., in street markets usually organized by local collective structures of solidarity. The aim of both producers and consumers is actively to face the humanitarian crisis. We could say that they have created another kind of market outside the official one in the same way that grassroots oral history groups have undertaken the effort to write history outside academia and the Greek media's public history. In Athens, the first oral history group was created in 2011 in Kypseli. It is called OPIC. All groups begins with OPIC, Ομάδα Προφορικής Ιστορίας, and then follow the first letter of their district. Nowadays, Kypseli is densely populated, housing the largest number of immigrants, mainly from Africa, of all Athens districts. In April 2012, OPIC's members presented their work at the Cultural Center of Athens, and the event had a great and unexpected success. In 2013, the Oral History Group of Athens, OPIA, was established. In 2014, when the crisis had hit not only the poor but also the mid-class people, two new groups were created. The Oral History Group of Kolonaki, OPICO, because even this elite neighborhood faces many problems due to the crisis, and the Oral History Group of Budurvuti, OPIDU, an ex-Armenian neighborhood and a multicultural one in nowadays. During the winter 2014 and 2015, other two groups were created in the municipalities of Galați, OPIGA, and New Ionia, OPINI. In 2015, another two, in Halandri, OPIVIH, and in the Department of Political Science at the University of Athens. Now, two more are on ROAN. All members of these groups are volunteers. They, after a training seminar of about 20 hours, begin to collect oral testimonies. The groups constitute of thematic subgroups on crisis, migration, everyday life, social environment, the 40s decade, and so on. They are not part of a European Union program, and thus they had no money, but this did not impair their activities. On the contrary, the lack of material funds reinforced their social dynamic. The working method is that of a collaborative project. In June 2015, all of the groups cooperated and organized a 3-day oral history festival entitled The City Narrates. Today, first OPIA will present, the Oral History Group of Athens will present the way they work. OPIC from Kypseli and OPICO from Kolonaki will present their work on the crisis from the perspective of a degraded and an elite neighborhood, respectively. And OPIDU from Durguti will present the group's history and the video on the events organized last week focused on the occupation period. Thank you. Now, OPS come.
Good afternoon. We would like to thank the program committee. We represent the Oral History Group of Athens. Our main intention is not to present our work to you, but our group itself. Therefore, we are going to talk about its creation, its action, our experiences from the participation in it, and our plans for the future.
Our group has been created in June 2013 after a training seminar on the theory and methodology of oral history, and it now has 11 members. The composition of our group is perhaps interesting to the researcher, as 8 out of 11 are teachers in secondary education, in particular teachers of Greek language and literature, which means that we also teach Greek history. At this point, we should point out that the majority of the future members of our group are also teachers. We are volunteers. Our group has no legal status. We are neither an association, nor an NGO, nor a company, and we've got no financial support. In fact, we have managed to build the teamwork step by step by forming the conditions of our coexistence. The group currently functions as follows. We meet on a monthly basis. During these meetings, we report on the process of our work. We communicate and try to solve the issues we encounter. We take up duties, and we always keep record of what we do by notifying all the members via group mail. We have divided the group into 4 subgroups. Each subgroup deals with the whole of the interviews on a thematic basis. Then, the subgroup presents its work to the plenary. In that way, we all get to know our informants and the subject of each subgroup. The subgroups meet more often than the plenary based on the demands of the work. The above process contributed to the development of a warm and human communication and cooperation, which functions as a boost that fits us all. Through this teamwork, we rediscovered the importance of natural presence of people. Finally, we have created a website on which we upload our material.
The group works in accordance with the standards of the British Library. During the 2 years that our group exists, we have taken 32 live interviews from inhabitants of Athens. Our digital archive also includes 15 cuts from interviews which concern the 40s and were taken in the past by Tasoula Vervegnotti for sake of her personal research. We still are in the process of taking interviews. A copy of the digital archive has been given for safekeeping to the public library of the municipality of Athens.
At the same time, we proceeded editing the material that we gathered so far. From each interview, we have selected cuts and we have grouped them into thematic categories: the city of Athens and its neighborhoods, internal immigration, work, child labor, the 40s, war, civil war, political events, education, child's play, entertainment. In this way, our group's work has been facilitated, but also other researchers have attained access to the material. It's a sign that the work of oral history groups has already become well known. This is why invitations concerning historical events keep coming in, giving us the chance to present our work. In the next few days, we will participate in the first celebration of the liberation of the city of Athens from the occupation forces in October 1944.
What we have gained from the interpretation of our material and the contact with the informants is the interactive relationship, which is well presented by one of our members. I went out for my first interview certain that I knew my narrator and myself. By the end of the recording, I was sure that I had learned what I didn't know about his life. During the procession of the transcript, he led me into parts of my own life, my own experiences, as well as lives of others that I have met in real life or in my academic reading, in images and emotions, in ghosts and spirits, in memories and expectations. He made me constantly reshuffle the bricks, and new shapes emerged for myself, for my narrator, for my place, and for countless other things. Instantly, I repositioned my new self within them, and when I returned to his narrative, he had new things to tell me. As far as the experiences from processing the interviews are concerned, they are both cognitive and emotional. On the one side, we acquire new skills while discovering the modern history of Greece, which we never get to teach in school, but also is suppressed due to the trauma of the Civil War and because the oral tradition in the realms of the family has been disrupted. On the other side, we get moral satisfaction as we feel that we do something useful, not only for us and not just for the present. Some observations we made while processing our material. First, the same event is read in different ways by our informants. Something that does not usually happen in the official historical records, which are usually characterized by an one-dimensional perspective. We would like to refer to an example from one of our narrators. During German occupation, he says, his father left Athens to bring oil from the area of Laconia, Peloponnese. While his mother thought he had already died, one night he returned, but with empty hands. Oil, food, and figs were hidden in caves in the port of Rafina. The very next day, he went back with his son and managed to pass through the German blockade. A historian would consider this incident as another example of black marketeers, quite usual during that period. But the meaning the narrator gives in his interview is that of solidarity. He believes that his father, by risking his life, saved not only his family from famine, but also so many other families, since my mother would carry under her armpit every night a bottle of oil, 2 or 3 figs, and would give them to anyone in need. In this narration, the phenomenon of black market loses much of its black. Actually, we think that this is exactly the great contribution of oral history, bringing to light the shades of grey of the story, the nuances that exist in human acts.
The second point to be highlighted is how memory of places changes in time. A woman narrates in great admiration the construction of Metaxas Square, a large square in its time, constructed by the dictator Metaxas before the war. Citizens were meeting there, and next to it was a well-known playground with a pool for the children of the neighborhood. A post-war narrator, born 20 years after, refers nostalgically to the role this playground played in her life without knowing who made it. Today, the square has a different name. It's Sotiris Petroulas Square. Petroulas was a local resident who was a leftist and was killed during the political unrest of July 1965 that caused the conflict between the government and the palace. Today, this square is important for the new inhabitants, mainly immigrants, who ignore its history.
And the third point is that traumatic events not only stigmatize those who experienced them, but also the future generations in various ways. In the modern history of Greece, a very traumatic event was civil war, which literally stigmatized the lives and souls of people in the first post-war decades. Leftists who were not persecuted, imprisoned, or exiled kept silent and advised their children not to speak from now on. However,